Good evening, everyone. It's my honor to welcome this Grinnell community, a community that is incredibly close to my heart and a community that is indisputably loyal to a place where I was a total pain in the ass. I was born in India and I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The day I graduated from high school, I came home to find my meager belongings on the front porch of my house. At 17, I was alone and homeless. And the next year was full of a lot of pain and fear. But just when I thought I wasn't going to make it, thanks to welfare, I was able to get off the street into a safe housing situation, food stamps provided just enough to survive. And I called my senior year English teacher, Mrs. Brenger. She'd fail you if you skipped her class. It was last period, and Friday afternoons were popular cut times. And if she saw you walking across the quad, that was it. She was shocked I wasn't at school. And we sat down and we put together a list of places where I might end up and be safe. And she made me put Grinnell on my list, even though I had never been further west than Ohio. And when I applied, I was definitely an anomaly. None of the schools knew what to do with me. I'd been homeless, I was on my own, I didn't have parents, but I needed their information to qualify for financial aid. And then Grinnell did something truly extraordinary. On their own, they reached out to the Department of Education and they sought a waiver on my behalf. And they got it. I will always be eternally grateful that Grinnell bet on me. Every other school followed Grinnell's lead. And when it came right down to it, a dean at one of our fiercest competitors sat me down and she said, if you were my son, I'd tell you to go to Grinnell. Not just because the aid package was generous. And she said, look, you'll be able to afford a winter coat and books, and that'll be great. And she was right. But she turned to me and she said, Grinnell is a place where you will be able to find yourself, where you will be able to pursue your passion. And she was right. 25 years later, I realized that even then, Grinnell was way ahead of the curve. I arrived on a campus sight unseen. And all of a sudden, I had a safe place to sleep. I had food, and I was at a place where I could think and learn, and it was exhilarating. 8 a.m. tutorial was hard, but worth it. But it was also exhausting and hard. Parents' weekend was torture. I didn't have parents. I was doing my own taxes and financial aid, and every time the school closed, I was homeless again. And I certainly didn't have money to go out for pizza. I had no choice but to hustle. I must have worked every job on campus, dining hall, financial aid, student driver, you name it, I did it. And then one day, my hustle met George Drake. He had just returned to campus from spending 2 years in Lesotho. And he was teaching a class on Southern African history. And I was the absolute last ad on the last day. And he made me take the exam the next day. I still kind of am pissed off about that. But I took 32 credits with George Drake. He became a lifelong mentor and a champion. And I'm not a history major. Every major academic and professional accomplishment that I've experienced, I go back to George because he demanded the absolute best from me, and he loved me. In fact, a paper that I wrote for him took me to South Africa between my junior and senior year. He liked the paper that I wrote. He sent it on to another alum and trustee, George Moose, who called Pierre Sene, the head of Amnesty International in London, and said, you need to hire this guy. And so on a Saturday, I got a call from Pierre offering me a job in Cape Town. He said, we haven't been there for 50 years, and we need to open an office, and I hear you're the guy. So I went to Cape Town, and I opened an office. I covered the Truth and Reconciliation Commission hearings. I sat next to Steve Biko's widow when she found out what happened to her husband, what really happened. I met Desmond Tutu and Nelson Mandela. I also met Baby Spice. She was nice. A few years ago, thanks to George Drake and George Moose, I was interviewing with Ted Olson for a job in the Obama White House. And Ted Olson turned to me and said, "What's the most important part of the Constitution?" And I thought about it. No one had asked me that. And I told him it was the preamble. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. Ted disagreed, and I didn't get the job. But I was right. Our union will never be perfect. But we, the people, are charged with working to perfect it. Grinnell taught me that. I've applied that lesson at the Pentagon, in boardrooms, in maximum security prisons, at the NSA, in protests, and in court. I remain vocal and very opinionated on how we can best create a more perfect union as a nation and how Grinnell can live up to its ideals. I currently work as a lawyer in this town, and there's no shortage of good fights that require our time, treasure, and talent. But as we all join in to fight for what matters to us, and it's different for all of us, the principle that I try and keep in mind is that we have to avoid the false choice of or. When it comes to giving back, when it comes to fighting the good fight, the answer should not be this or that. It should be this and that. Let's do both. A few years ago at reunion, I saw George Drake, and I told him, "I can never pay you back for all that you've done." And he looked at me and he said, "Of course you can't. I can't pay back all the people who helped me along the way. None of us can. That debt can never be paid back. All you can do is pay it forward." I spent the last 20 years trying to do just that. Tonight is about all of us paying it forward. And for those of you that have seen Hamilton, and if you haven't, you should, you want a Grinnellian in the room where it happens, because they will make all the difference. That journey, that impact is what this evening is all about. So at the end of the evening, I hope your actions will help Grinnell create a more perfect union. Enjoy the program.